Hello and good evening, good afternoon, maybe it's even good morning to you. Welcome to a Facebook Live on public speaking and how it's going to help you. We're here. I'm with my co-founder of the Academy of Public Speakers and wonderful good friend, Brian Guo.
Hello, guys. It's Brian here.
And of course,
joining us today.
sorry, Brian, carry on. I think you
Hello, welcome to join us today. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to our time here today. We're going to go through some questions that we've had submitted. We're going to answer any questions that you may have live on the chat right now. So feel free to post them as you're watching us. And with the amazing benefits of technology, we're not live in just one group. We're not live in two. We're live in 5. So we will be sure to go through all the questions we get to make sure that we get to your particular question. Before we get going, let me take a little bit of time to introduce myself and Brian to introduce himself, so you know a little bit about us if we're yet to have that pleasure of meeting. So you know a little bit about us, and then you understand the background and what we're sharing with you as we go through today's session. So I'll ask Brian first of all if he could say a few words about himself and his background to give you that little understanding.
Yes, thank you, Andy. So my name is Brian, as you probably know. So me and Andy started our little company, the Academy of Public Speakers. And it's a place where we help people to become confident speakers. And a bit about me, I came from China and I moved to London about 7 years ago. It's quite a long time ago. That's where I started, basically. I came to the country not speaking the language that well, and I was incredibly shy and nervous in terms of public speaking. And that kind of leads me to this journey of pursuing confidence in public speaking. And as I went through this journey from being terrified to getting better and better by putting in the work and doing speeches after speeches in various places, I do see my confidence grow a lot. And another benefit of improving public speaking is that the confidence doesn't stay just on the stage. It can actually go out to every area of your life. It makes you like much more. It makes me much more confident people in general. So that's why we kind of started the whole thing. We want to help more people to become more confident, to be able to speak, to have a voice, to be heard.
And that is so important, isn't it? Getting that voice and being heard, because that's what we need in our career and in our business and wherever we are. And I've got Andy Botello Brooks. Andy, welcome. Nice to see you again. Hopefully see you soon as well. A little bit about my journey, because, you know, again, I used to be really shy. I used to be really quiet. I used to be the guy who would go bright red in meetings. You know, if somebody asked them a question, I used to think and sit there thinking in a meeting, should I say this? Is it worth me saying? Maybe, maybe not. And then, of course, what happens when you're doing that? When you're so nervous, you don't want to speak up, and you're pondering about whether you should answer the question or not. Somebody else does. And what happens? They get the credit. Have you heard that, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What?
Remember, happens all the time before.
Right. We did, yeah, for sure, right? That's the kind of thing that we do. And then you're losing out. That's why it's so important to get that confidence, you know, to be the person I never used to be, you know, to volunteer to give the presentation, to want to be up there, to be saying things. You have to get the credibility. That's why it's so important for you to do that. And as Brian said, that's why we set up the Academy of Public Speakers. And that's what we do now. We help people, just like you, to build that confidence. So whether you're like myself, who native English speaker, but absolutely petrified of ever doing it, and you get all the symptoms known to mankind before I ever did it, or maybe you're boy Brian and you're worried because English is your second language, and that's your concern and worry. That's where you've got us both here to help you, both here to answer some of your questions that we've got posted. Some people have PM'd them over to us over the last couple of days since we mentioned we were going to be doing this. And we've got 1 or 2 coming in already in the groups that we've had running. Brian, I see you got a question. I mean, you're just looking at there from Catherine. Would you like to share that one with us as we get going
Yes,
Question.
of course, absolutely. So there's this question from Catherine. As I get so nervous, I print a copy of my speech, which I have it with me. My manager said not to read it, but I need to. What do you think? Get it? It happens all the time. You're nervous. You really wish you have the whole thing written down, so you know the speech word for word. So you know, no matter how nervous you are, you can always kind of deliver. But the issue with the big piece of paper is that I think, first of all, I think your manager is absolutely right, because it's kind of like a coping mechanism. We're having that big, large piece of paper in front of us. What we're going to be doing is just looking at the paper and read through them line by line. And I sit through one of those presentations with some previous colleagues. They're staring at their slides, looking at the screen. There's zero contact with us, with the audience. And I remember he was reading, he was shaking, and he's just reading the whole thing really fast. And for me, it's a terrible experience because I didn't really get to connect with him. It's not like he's speaking to us. And when you're doing that, when you're having that big piece of paper, naturally you're going to try to read it. And since you're going to have loads of like blocks of text together, you're going to try to read them through. And it's going to really break out like eye contact with your audience. So you can't really communicate like what you're doing in the normal conversation. So that's the first thing. Like the eye contact's gonna break. The second thing is you might be shaking, and the paper might be like. So that's gonna be looking really bad as well for you. And it kind of like with the whole piece of paper, it kind of drives you internal. You'll be worrying about, oh, what's the next thing coming up, and it gets you to try to finish the whole thing. So as a result, you'll be reading it really fastly. And my advice is actually, don't worry about that piece of paper. Have some smaller notes, have a few talking points, like what's the structure, kind of have an outline, have a mind map, what are the bigger points, what are the sub points, list them out and go through them one by one. If you take the time to prepare, you'll know what to say. In that way, you'll be able to look into the audience, you'll be more relaxed. And as you look at people and just talk, it gradually flows and it gets into a conversation mode. So that will make it relax you, and it makes it much easier for the audience to understand. So that's my advice. Definitely, I think it's a good advice from your manager. Don't use a big piece of paper. Use smaller notes. List out the bullet points, the sub points, so you can kind of use it as a cue for the conversation.
Well, you say you use small notes. What size do you use? I like hand size, but what do you go for?
I normally depends how. Sometimes, I think smaller ones are actually good. Yeah, so you can just put them in your hands.
Yeah, exactly. So, but in the palm. And then
palm,
they're not really a distraction, are they? You can still gesture with your hands if you want to. You can move around. And as you're right, great point. You're not flapping them.
Yeah, exactly.
With an A4 sheet of paper, you naturally flap it. And if you're holding nervous, you rightly said, you're showing everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Or I would just probably put it on have bigger font and just put it on a big piece of paper, put it in front of me. Don't have to hold it, just put it in front. And when I need, I can have a gaze so I know what's the next point to cover.
I think the key is, right, you don't want to be holding it, because if you're holding it, you're just going to be reading it.
Exactly.
And then you lose upon eye contact. Great advice. Thank you for that. I'm going to share one from Katie. Katie is asking, I always end up saying lots of ums and ahs when speaking in front of people. Oddly, I never do with friends. How can I stop? And that is so true, isn't it? We don't do all those ums and ahs when we're chatting with family, chatting with friends. We're all relaxed and happy. But as soon as you suddenly start speaking in public, that's what happens. Even you can be quite happy chatting in a meeting, but somebody puts you on the spot, that's what you do. All the all starts coming out. And part of it is our brain is obviously now in full gear, rushing, it's trying to process everything. We're feeling tension, we're feeling nervous, and we're worried about how we're being judged, maybe how people are thinking of us. The thing to do when you're on the spot, if somebody asks you a question, for example, is just to allow yourself time to think. to process the information. Just notice the seconds and the pattern of my sentences. I'm not going really, really fast and having to speak it all really, really quickly to just get to every point, like we do when we suddenly on the spot. So just take a second when you're on the spot to notice the speed at which you speak, the speed of your speech, and allow pauses. And that gives you time to do two important things. One is to think, which we might need to do, and the second is something we can forget to do, which is also very important and actually critical, to breathe. Right? We want to be able to breathe. Right? Have you tried not breathing, Brian? Quite difficult, isn't it? Right? You want to be able to breathe. And if you're not breathing, then you're going to feel more stressed. And that builds the tension. So what you want to do, Katie, is when you're standing on the spot, answering questions, or maybe when you're giving a presentation, you're feeling attention, just pause for a second or two. Nobody notices. Then continue. And remember to pause. If there's a pause, stop in your sentence. Just pause for a second. Take a breath and carry on. And by doing that, you will instantly reduce those ums, those ers. That will help you. That's, I think, is a great first stage to do it. So, yes, Katie does think that helps. So thank you, Katie. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So that's Katie. Who are you going to speak to next, Brian? Who's your
yeah, actually, just add a few more points on that. I think one of the best way is to be more aware of it, because sometimes you might say like you don't use that many ums and ers when you're talking to friends. It's actually because you don't realize, because you're pretty chilled when you're with friends and just talking to them. Even though you have ums and ers, it doesn't bother you. But when you're speaking in public, you become more self-aware. Whenever you say that, you're like, oh, I'm saying that again. I think one of the best ways I tried before was just to record myself. Like I record every time I'm speaking in public, just have my phone ready, put the voice memo on, and I listen back so I can be very analytical and look back at how many ums and ers I had this time. You have to kind of bring that conscious there. You want to be aware of that every time. So when you get to that point, you want to realize what's the urge. When you have that urge to say that, you got to realize that. Otherwise, you're gonna keep saying that, and you feel like, I said it again, and then it gets into this loop. So you're gonna break the cycle by building the awareness. All right, I realize I'm gonna say that. I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna pause, breathe. Yeah, that's one of my tips for that. And so the next question I get is from Nikki. So how many times do I need to rehearse a speech? Is 4 times enough? In terms of rehearsal, I would say it's not like black and white. It's not like there's a speech, you have to do it 8 times, you have to rehearse it 4 times. If you don't do it 4 times, it's not going to go well. Or like that could be any number. That could be 4 times for some people, 8 times for others, 30 times for me when I started, or even more. It's actually the key is not the number, like how many times you want to rehearse. The key is for you to feel comfortable and confident with your speech. So get to your point, rehearse it to a point that it kind of like gets kind of like ingrained into your memory. That's if you're starting out, that's one of the best way to do. Just over rehearse, so you can really know your content inside out. And not just like rehearsing the content, not just memorizing like the word for word of things you need to know, but also remember how you want to say it. Remember things like when to pause, how to use your facial expressions, those kind of things. So when you put everything together, when you're rehearsal, just pretending that you're giving the speech to an audience, like how exactly you would do when you're delivering that. And I think it depends on how good you understand the content. If it's something you're really familiar with, then like a few times is definitely enough. But if it's something that's new, you don't know too much about it, I definitely recommend do it a few more times. And there's something about memory. It's like you want to kind of like review kind of like trying to recall. It's something called, what was that? Active recall. You want to recall the speech. Give it some space in between each time you rehearse. So don't do it like 4 times right before you go. Do it like a week before the big date. Do it once a day. In that way, remember the speech much better than you do it like 7 times before the speech. So give yourself a bit of time and do it. Like, give it some space in between each rehearsal. In that way, it will really help you remember and learn the content. Anything you want to add, Andy?
I mean, right. It's not the number. It is actually spacing out. There's no point deciding your presentation is at 2:00, so I'm going to rehearse 6 times between 1 and 2 or whatever, an hour beforehand. It is doing a little bit, as you rightly say, beforehand, weeks beforehand, a little bit. It's better to do one rehearsal. If you're going to do 4, I'd rather do 1 a week than 4 in the hour before the meeting. It is doing it, building up, getting comfortable with it. And that's why preparing early is so important. Getting that started.
Exactly.
So definitely start early, to get the muscle, get it into memory, and then you'll feel more comfortable with it. And it does make you feel more confident ultimately. Yeah, good point, Brian.
Yeah. Next one.
It's fun. I'm going to pick on the one from Paco. Paco posting to our Facebook group, Public Speaking Mastery. If you're not a member, you should be. Public Speaking Mastery is the place to go. We post a lot of great tips on public speaking. Paco asks, or says, one of the most common reasons why sometimes I'm holding back is the anticipation of potential consequences of my speaking. The dry mouth, mainly, the heart rising, etc. I know those ones. And this is based on a previous experience. This kind of vicious circle is more of anticipation. So what's happening is Paco's obviously had some bad experience, so now naturally expects it's going to happen again. He's going to get the dry throat. He's going to get the pounding heart. And therefore you get into that circle. And therefore, I suppose you naturally think, why would I put myself through that? Why would you want to give a presentation if it's going to be such an endurance, such an awful experience? And I tell you that, I used to get those symptoms. I used to get them every single time I thought about my presentation that's coming up. And that could be minutes beforehand, before I'm in the room. It could be days, it could be weeks beforehand. I remember lying in bed on a Sunday night thinking about my presentation that week and getting the palpitations and the sweaty palm. Yeah, it's just the thought. That's how powerful the mind is. So if you think about it, if the mind can be that powerful to give you those symptoms, just thinking about something that's coming up, as you're thinking of all the negative things that could, maybe, possibly happen, how would it be for you if you thought of all the positive things? Focused on the positive of how well your presentation is going to go, how well everybody's going to enjoy it, the great comments you're going to receive from your managers, your colleagues, your clients. So you focus on the positive of all what's going to go well for you, rather than the negative of all what could, maybe, possibly. And let's be honest, things can go wrong. I've done presentations recently where you prepare everything, but something happens. The AV system fails. The laptop suddenly crashes in the middle of your presentation. It happens. But we can't be focused on all those negatives, because that's what builds that stress and anxiety. So I'd say, if you have concerns about a presentation or speech, look at what you can deal with and address them if there's any sensible concern. Like, for example, if you're worried about a connection to the AV system, make sure you've got the right adapters, check what you need, then you can no longer need to worry about it. But then start focusing on what's going to go well for you. Focusing on the compliments you're going to receive. Focus on your audience. What can you do for them? How are you going to help them? What are they going to take away from your presentation? And as you start focusing on helping these people, the people who are giving up their time, aren't they, to hear you, you're making it worthwhile for them. You're going to create a better presentation for them now, because you're focusing on all the good, positive stuff. And you'll see how all your tension, anxieties and stresses all just reduce. So just think about all the good points, all the good stuff, rather than negative. In the same way, you can pop out to the shops and be thinking about all the terrible things that could happen between leaving your home and going to the shops. Don't think about the negative that could, maybe, possibly, will be in my advice. So focus on the positive, and you will. It may seem super simple, but you'll see it makes such a difference to you. You got any other thoughts you could share to help Paco, Brian?
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the most common experience for, I would say, for people who just starting out. Yeah, it's like for me when I started, I definitely get that. My mouth is dry. I was shaking. I was become really self-aware. I was like every word I said, I'd be judging myself. I kind of like having a commentator in my head, commenting everything I said.
That little voice is so powerful.
Exactly, yeah, and that's really like it really gave me a tough time at the beginning because it's gonna keep commenting on myself, and that distract me from delivering or saying what I'm going to say. And it's actually you're not giving your best to the audience. And I think that the best way to address that is just like everything else. You got to put yourself into that same situation again and again, because you got to learn how to handle it in that situation. It's like you can take kind of like understand the trick, but it's like unless you're on the point, unless you're in that same spot again, it's hard to kind of like imagine how it's gonna go. But definitely take like what Andy said is like you want to focus on the audience. It's like take that and go out and practice a bit more. Yeah, like finding more opportunities. So you kind of throw yourself in that situation again and again. And the first time then you become more self-aware. Like, okay, so I'm doing this. I'm commenting on myself too much. Now next time, let me focus on not doing that. And it's by taking those little small steps and kind of practice and going back to that same spot, going back to the like in front of the audience and do it again and again. I think that's
It's just doing it. You're absolutely right. Because we can have one bad experience and then think, oh no, I can't do it. But we can do it. We just have to push ourselves. The great analogy I love is of a baby. A baby tries to stand up and falls over. He falls down. It doesn't. We don't just say, "Oh, she's obviously not a walker because she tried once and fell down." Do we? We don't say, "She's not a walker." What a shame.
There's a wheelchair.
Yeah, exactly, right? We don't say, "Oh, well, what a shame. She did it once, didn't work. Never mind." The baby keeps trying and trying and trying, and eventually the baby walks. And we have to do the same. We might do a bad presentation. We might do a bad, everything we do in life we can do badly sometimes. But it's just continuing to do it, and you'll see, you'll be amazed how much more confident you become. You'll be amazed how much the skills grow. And Brian, I think you're absolutely right. What you say, right? You hear that little voice, you hear that inner critic, and we're always our worst critic, right? We always think it's gone badly, we've messed up, people are going to be laughing. People aren't. Generally, if you make a mistake or something happens, unless you draw attention to it, nobody even notices.
Yeah.
Right? I've learned that so often, nobody notices. I was giving a presentation quite recently, and they couldn't play the video of this venue, right? But I had videos embedded in my presentation, so I had some slides, right? Now, I didn't have time to re-edit the slides because it's literally the last second to take them out. So all I did was casually just flick through the slides that I had the videos on. No one noticed.
Exactly.
No one noticed. Whereas if you take it, oh my God, look, I'm sorry, I can't play the video. I'm really sorry. Then you draw in attention to it. But you know what? I just clicked through them, casually talking, and I did a survey afterwards. Not one single person that will notice. So don't draw attention to them, and then nobody notices them at all. That's what we do. So do what Brian says, I think, or you said, Brian, ignore that voice because that is such a distraction.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Good. Well, Paco, hope that helped you, my friend. What else we got, Brian?
Next one is from Xing. So we said rehearsal earlier, but I'm alone, so I got no one.
Oh.
I think what Xing was trying to say here is not like he's alone. He can't get to rehearse with people. Yeah, so sometimes you might think it's you can rehearse with a partner, with a friend, with your families, your kids, your parents. But what if you're by yourself? Actually, you can still rehearse by yourself, even though you're I think one of the most effective way is to just record yourself. That you can just go to the front of the room, imagine like you are facing with a big audience, and kind of have a little speaking area in front of you. Like give yourself a little stage. So imagine that's your stage, and you're facing an audience. And what you can do is use your phone. Definitely get one of those nowadays. Put your phone put it somewhere. If you don't have a tripod, even just put it like, get it set up. I normally just put it in front of a mug or something, and I can put the camera on, see if I'm in the frame. If I'm not, I'll adjust it and make sure that the camera is set up. So click record button, go to the front and do my speech, just pretending I'm giving the speech to the audience. When I finish, I came back, I watched the video. And the good thing about that is you know exactly how the audience sees you. Because normally when we see ourselves, we're looking at a mirror. We're seeing like a mirror reflection of ourselves. So it's kind of flipped. It's going to be like terrible at the beginning because you're not going to get used to that. If you're not used to looking yourself in camera, you're going to feel terrible. And that's exactly how I felt listening to myself, watching myself speaking. I just felt like, oh, that's not me. That's so weird. But it was actually so good because you get to see yourself as an audience. So you can pick up the things you're doing, which you normally won't be able to see. And it's even better than when you're rehearsing in front of the mirror, because when you're rehearsing in front of the mirror, you're going to keep looking at yourself like, oh, am I doing this right? So you'll be kind of like practicing your speech and also thinking, and are you having the right facial expression? Are you having the right body language? So you're kind of distracted. But when you're using a camera to record yourself, you'll be able to just focus on delivering the speech. And then later on, you can look back and you can point out the bits and where you want to improve and think about how to improve them and do it again, shoot another video. If you do that, I think that's going to work even better than when you're rehearsing in front of people. You want to add, Andy?
No, I'd say definitely record yourself. Yeah, always. I mean, actually, as one of you and I know, we would do if we're giving a presentation anywhere, we record it, even if it's a big event. Always record. Then you can see back what you've done, and so you always do better than you thought. Always. And it actually links back to what we were saying earlier. The last question is our own worst critic always thinks things are bad, but you're absolutely right that when you see the video, actually you realise you did much better than you thought. But you can definitely see your areas for improvement if you're on your own. You can see your staging, you can see your gestures. And it is uncomfortable at the beginning, I get that, but oh my gosh, it's so worth doing. It's so worth doing. Use your phone, prop it up as Brian said. Fucking use your laptop, doesn't matter, just as long as anything where you've got a webcam, a camera, anything to record it and just practice. But going back to what we said earlier, start early. There's no point trying to do it at the last moment. You have to start early, isn't it? You know. So always do as early as possible, and then you always feel more relaxed because you've done it. You know, you feel comfortable with it, right? And that's what you want. Know your content, and you've just that just helps you know so much about your content. Somebody who used to get so scared about presentations, I'm trying to think about them, but of course, there always comes a point where you've got to think about them, and it might be in some cases, I've got to be honest, 2 hours before the presentation at work. But now the tension's there. You've got to quickly get it done. You've got to rehearse it. You've got to deliver it. And quite frankly, my presentations are appalling because they're so scared. So do it early would always be my advice.
Definitely.
I'm going to take one more question that came in, Brian, if I may.
Okay.
Sarah was asking, is the fear of is the fear of public speaking why I won't ask questions in meetings? Yes. Absolutely, Sarah. It is because it's still the same. So we're worried about, first of all, we're suddenly the centre of attention, right? Large meeting, you're asking a question, people can all look at us. And I used to hate that. That's when attention. And that's what Brian and I talked about earlier when we said about how we get that thought, that idea in a meeting, and actually we'd end up thinking, is it a good idea? Shall I say it? Shall I not? And then we don't, and somebody else said it instead. So it is the same fear. There's anxieties, there's worries about being judged. There's worries about what if you're going to look silly, etc. So absolutely, it all kind of links together, that confidence. And that's why it's so important to build your confidence. Build your confidence to speak up in public. Build your confidence to give presentations. Absolutely crucial. These are lifelong skills. I think I should say that at the beginning, Brian, how I do that as well. These are lifelong skills. You just want to have them. And then they just flow everywhere once you've got that confidence. You know, imagine job interviews when you can answer questions with clarity. how important that is in a job interview. And that's one of the few occasions when they probably are judging you. So having the confidence to answer questions is so important. Having the confidence to expression when somebody asks you a question in a meeting is so important. I say these are literally lifelong skills. As I mastered them, it changed my life. Being an actor, I would never have done this kind of thing, right? Without them. These are just so important. So it is the same kind of thing. So I would encourage you to be able to do it. I mean, Brian, have you found that since you mastered public speaking, became an expert in that in meetings you're more confident and more fluid? And
yeah, absolutely. It's like when you were talking in meetings, it's like I think from my first year's experience when I started speaking up in public more, like speaking in meeting just feels natural. You just like talk. It's like talk to your friends because you're used to that. And once you get used to speaking to a group of people or a larger group of people, it just becomes so easy. When you want to say something, you say it. You won't like it becomes like a muscle memory. If I want to say something, I just say it.
It just becomes natural, yeah. It does. It just builds your confidence, which is so important, Sarah. So definitely it is. Definitely build that confidence. And by luck, just for you, Sarah, just for you. No, actually, for anybody who's watching, we even have something that's going to help you to build your confidence, to help you to be in that position, actually find it up when you are being asked questions, or you want to ask a question, or even give a presentation. Because confidence, I do think is key. Trying to be there, I'll be there. We are a friendly group. We're supportive of you, and believe it or not, we actually have fun as well. So it's very light-hearted, fun group. So it will be great for you. You're going to enjoy it, I promise. But the key is take action. Take action, and you will get that success. Same as Brian has, and the same as I have. But it's doing that for the most important thing. Any final words of wisdom, Brian, before we wrap up our live here tonight?
I would say just go sign up now, like you said. Action.
Action is the key.
Yeah.
Action is the key. Always. So go along, have a look. Say it's totally complimentary. Just yet. We will be back again next day. So again, if you've got any questions, got any comments, please feel free to post them below this video link. Even if you're watching it on the replay, you can still like it. You can still show us some love. You can still share it. So please do so. Post your comments below. We'll be sure to pick them up on the next session. So until next week, I will wish you all goodbye. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.